Governor Evers and state Republicans coming together for a rare moment of compromise as they work to craft a tax cuts bill, all while the state's Joint Finance Committee puts together the pieces for a new state budget. Emilee, Fannon, J.R. Ross break it all down in tonight's Capital Connection.
We begin this week as there are ongoing discussions here at the state capitol between Governor Tony Evers and GOP leaders about reaching a deal on a possible tax cut plan. Now, we have long known that they have wanted to reach an agreement, but in years past, JR, you and I both know it's very difficult for them to get to that point. However, it's noteworthy they're meeting. Their staff is going to keep these discussions going in hopes of hammering out a deal. What was new this week is that Governor Evers told me that his preference is to have a tax cut plan in the state budget. Well, why? Because it's to his benefit that he can then use his partial veto power to craft it to his liking and sign it and possibly take credit for it. On the other hand, Republicans want to send him in a standalone bill, separate outside the budget, as that's their preferred path because of Evers' broad veto authority. What this overall means, though, is that will they reach a deal? What will it look like? Those are still some of the unknowns that we don't know yet.
Yeah, and could this be the linchpin for a budget deal in general? Now, you mentioned the governor's partial veto authority. Supreme Court kind of emboldened him to be more aggressive if he wants to. You could see a path where Republicans and governors say, okay, here's our tax cut deal, here's our education deal, here's our health care programs deal, handshake, we'll do this budget and get it through both houses. Now, that require a couple of things. One, probably a promise from Evers, I won't use my partial veto authority and change what we agreed to. And two, that Republicans trust them because they don't really get along very well. I haven't for a long time. The other thing, though, is the timing of all this. And if you kind of look ahead to the governor's political aspirations, he has said he'll make a decision about third term, running for one, after the budget. Well, it would kind of be in his interest to get it done in June and July, not August, September, October, because the faster it's done, the faster you have a decision, the faster you can start raising money. And if you're not going to run, other Democrats can kind of jockey for position and get ready for that primary in August of 2026.
We're now going to move on to new guidance that was issued by the Department of Administration this week under the Evers administration that seeks to give state workers guidance on how to interact with federal immigration officials. Now, we don't know of any instances of this actually happening yet, but this speaks to what's going on the national level with the Trump administration being very aggressive with their arrests related to immigration officers. Now, looking from the Republicans' perspective, this was met with swift backlash. They have argued that this is obstructing justice, and it's somewhat of a talking point, as this has been a big political issue for them in the past several election cycles.
Yeah, looking at the spin from Republicans has been this is trying to break the law, encourage state police to break the law. From Democrats, it's been no, this is actually telling people to follow their rights, what they're allowed to do. Look, in the big picture, we had the arrest of the Milwaukee County judge this past week. The Trump administration is ramping things up. We've heard them threaten for a while. We're going to go after you. If you're not going to play along with us, we're going to go after you, mayors, governors. Okay, here's an example of a public official being arrested for her actions. See how that plays out. But what I'm wondering is, what's this mean now for states, state elected officials? Are we going to see more of a crackdown going forward from the Trump administration?
And looking ahead to next week, we are going to have more budget listening sessions. Of course, we know members on the Joint Finance Committee, typically around this time 2 years ago, they were already taking steps to remove a lot of policy items out of Governor Tony Evers' budget. They're not quite there yet, or they won't be meeting that mark yet. So it's really a lot of unknowns still when JFC is going to really get the ball rolling on the state budget, as there's still a lot of factors out there, which is playing into this too.
They're not late yet, but they're getting awfully close to being behind schedule. And why is that important? Well, fiscal year ends June 30th. We'll see how it plays out. But for Republicans, they got to figure out a path. Like we said before, is there a deal to be had with Governor Evers? Can they get Republican votes on their own for a budget? Remember, the Senate now is 18-15 for Republicans. They've had problems passing things. They had 22 members last session. At 18, it gets dicey. So is that, the more time you have to work on a deal, the better chances you have of getting something done.
All right, that will do it for this week. Thanks so much for joining us.